Welcome to Soccer in 60, presented by the Empire Strykers. Get ready for your weekly look at all the pro soccer teams in Greater Los Angeles. We've got all the news and analysis you need, from LAFC and the LA Galaxy to the Empire Strykers, Angel City FC, and Orange County Soccer Club. Now, buckle up and enjoy Soccer in 60.
Welcome indeed to Soccer in 60, brought to you by SAC Health System. This is the fastest paced soccer show in SoCal, covering all the week's news, highlights, and more. From LAFC, the Galaxy, Angel City, Orange County Soccer Club, and of course, the major arena soccer league zone, Empire Strykers. Hello and welcome. I'm your host, J.R. Liebert, and thanks so much for joining me on another absolutely jam-packed episode of Soccer in 60. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on all your podcasting platforms, and make sure you subscribe to Soccer in 60 on YouTube. And joining me today, it's a fearsome foursome here on Soccer in 60, Orange County soccer superfan and Soccer in 60 OG himself, Timmy K. Tim Kolotz. Welcome back.
Hey, Scarf, it's good to be here, man. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Too bad all of our teams that we cover couldn't be that same way this past week, eh, buddy?
It's been a rough one for sure. One half of the Lacuna Galaxiana podcast hosting team, Ananda Karana. Ananda, welcome back.
Hey, guys. Welcome, or good to be back, at least, on the Mount Rushmore podcast, like I said. So, no, good to be back. Miss you guys.
Great to have you back as well. And, of course, a Canadian Soccer Hall of Famer, two-time World Cup participant, and, of course, an Olympian as well, Cara Lang Romero. Cara, welcome back to Soccer in 60.
As always, happy to be here, guys.
Very happy to have you. And just in case you all have missed what happened this week, the hangover from Toluca is real for LAFC. While it's one step forward and two steps back for the Galaxy, Angel City has now slid all the way out of the playoff picture, while another late goal leaves points on the pitch for Orange County. And it's uncharted territory in the MASL as the Empire Strykers prepare to lose a player in the expansion draft coming up. And we bring on Andy Deossa, soccer journalist and creator and co-host of the Kicking It Real podcast. Andy and I sat down for a fantastic interview that we will get to in just a little bit. But before we go all around the soccer world in Southern California, let's check in with our friends over at Omnitrans. In partnership with the Empire Strykers, experience the thrill of game day with Omnitrans. Be in the heart of the action at Toyota Arena and let Omnitrans take care of the ride. Simply download the Transit app to catch your bus and enjoy a stress-free trip to cheer on the Strykers. Don't miss out on the excitement and make every moment count at Toyota Arena. Ride with Omnitrans to your next Empire Strykers game. All right, let's head right into the Galaxy. Two matches since we last were here. The Galaxy flew across the country to take on Atlanta United. And after withstanding a solid effort and absorbing some serious play from the home side for the first 70 minutes, they completely flipped the script on the United. Galaxy got a little lucky with a disallowed goal and a post for Atlanta. Had to have them feeling a little snake bit. But let's check in first with Ananda. Ananda, the human backpack that has been Gabriel Peck showed up once again, putting the Galaxy in there along for the ride en route to 2 goals. What is it like having a player like Gabriel Peck who just refuses to give in or give up, no matter the score, no matter the circumstance?
Yeah, he's there. He's the DP for the LA Galaxy for a reason, right? And I think more so than his, his Brazilian Samba flashiness or his just his stamina and his speed. It's his mentality. It's his motor. He has a huge motor. Like, he doesn't stop. Even we'll talk about the second game, even in tonight's game where the Galaxy were pretty much dead and buried. He still had the motor to continue for the 90 minutes. And that's something you're always going to get with Gabriel Peck, is 100% effort. And that's, usually the best players, Scarf. It's a combination of not only the technique and the technical ability, but it's the mentality, right? It's the drive, it's the motor. And Gabriel Peck has that. Now we just got to see it more consistently and let the technique shine a bit more in the goal sheet.
Yeah, absolutely. Something, Cara, that we've seen time and time again from the Galaxy, though, when they give up one, especially in some of these road contests, they tend to maybe pack it up this season rather than what we've seen in the past, where they'll fight for points on the road. They gave up one in the 69th minute in this one. They came right back, though. Let me ask you about what that says about the resiliency about this club, maybe not giving up, not giving in like we've seen a couple times in the past.
Yeah, it's more than a couple times, actually. It's been quite a while since the LA Galaxy has not scored first and still come out with a win. So I think it said a lot. I think that this win was very promising for that reason, because they did come back from behind. It definitely wasn't Greg Vanney's preferred style of play, but it was promising to see some tactical flexibility from him and a willingness to get it done, and a willingness from the players to get it done no matter how it looked.
Yeah, it's always nice to have Gabriel Peck that makes you look really good at the end of everything, too. Timmy, let me ask you, Greg Vanney said over and over again, as Ananda likes to say, while ribbing Mitrovic, he was complimenting Marcinkowski, and we saw JT Marcinkowski make that one big save yet again in this Atlanta match. Tim, notwithstanding the Sporting Kansas City result, which we'll get to in a minute, JT Marcinkowski continues to prove that he's the man between the pipes for the Galaxy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it should be his team. You know, we've talked about it on the show since he came over. And the reality is, I think he's just a better keeper. I think he does make that one big save. And more so, it's not even the one big save. It's not the horrible non-save, right? That'll go through the wickets, or, he'll be out of position from the other keepers. Whereas Marcinkowski comes in and he's got better position. He does, like you said, make that one big save.
Yeah, unfortunately, they then had to travel to Sporting Kansas City, and it was a rough one. Probably the worst. Look, I'll say it. Maybe the worst team in MLS history happening right now in Sporting Kansas City. In fact, over their last 19 matches, dating all the way back to September of 2025, Ananda, I'm sorry to bring this up. In those 19 matches, 14 losses, 3 draws, and 2 wins against the Galaxy. And this one, Ananda, may have been the worst performance in quite a while from Greg Vanney's side.
Easily. I said it. We just popped off a instant reaction stream on our channel, and I said this is easily the worst performance of the year. And if you look at even the performances going back to last year, it looked like one of those performances during that 17 unbeat or winless streak to start the season. And it was a stinker. Greg said it post-match. He said that the team did not leave the hotel. And so that's an indictment, obviously, on not only his players, but, you got to look at the coaching staff too. It is about preparedness. It is about, like, how do you manage a 3-game set in 7 days away from home, which is not easy. But still, like, Greg is such an experienced coach. Like, you expect a coach of his pedigree to prepare his players to not down tools or not play down to the level of the competition. Just like you said, Scarf, potentially the worst team in MLS history. That's unacceptable. And boy, did I hear it from Galaxy fans post-match, for sure.
Yeah, Carl, let me ask you, as much of this match, was it coaching? Was it tactics? Was it lack of execution? Casey Stengel has a great quote about the 62 Mets when they were asked about how he thought about his team's execution. He said, I'm in favor of it. So I just want to get your thoughts on what happened on the pitch today.
I don't think you can point to tactics on this one. This one was all about mentality or lack thereof. They've got a major problem, and it's very almost curious that they would come out for a game or not show up for a game when it seemed like they were on the up. After that Atlanta comeback win, you're like, is this the turning point of the season for the LA Galaxy? Because it sure as heck could have been. And then they don't even show up to the next match against a team that they absolutely 100% should be beating. So for SKC, they've got 11 goals on the season, 5 of those against the Galaxy, 3 on the night tonight. That's just dreadful. And I think, as Ananda said, that you do have to look to the leadership in this case, because how are you not getting your players up for a game like this that would so easily continue this momentum going forward that you need so badly? Because this is a redemption season, is it not? And they're not looking very redeeming at the moment.
No, that's for sure. And Timmy K, real quick, now all they have to do is head up to Seattle and play the Sounders at Lumen Field. That matchup is going to be a tough one, huh, Timmy? Yeah,
this is going to be, in the city of rain, or the Emerald City. Yeah, this is going to be really, really hard for the Galaxy to come out. Seattle is one of the best teams in the league. They look great, and here they are. And as Kara mentioned, they could easily have taken a whole bunch of momentum into that game, and they're just not going to now.
Yeah, Nanda talked about it. 3 matches in a row on the road, and it's definitely not going to get easier playing in the Emerald City. That being said, something that was fantastic, very easy on this show is bringing on a good friend of ours, Andy Deossa, soccer journalist, writes for Apple Sports, and the host of the Kicking the Reel podcast. He sat down with me and we talked LAFC and the Galaxy. So let's head on over to that fantastic interview. I don't know who did it again, but it looked really good. Let's head on over to Andy now. Our guest here on Soccer in 60 is one of the most interesting emerging voices in American soccer media. He currently writes for Apple Sports and is also the creator and host of the Kicking the Reel podcast, where he's welcomed some of the biggest names in the game for conversations about soccer and culture. In the past, he has worked for MLS, Yahoo Sports, ESPN, the Boston Globe, and the New England Sports Network. I'm so excited to have with me a Rhode Island FC superfan and proud to say my friend, Mr. Andy Deossa. Andy, thank you so much for joining us here on Soccer in 60 today.
JR, man, it's a pleasure. What an intro. I need that clipped, and I just need that to go everywhere for the rest of my life. So thank you very much for that. I'm happy to be here.
Have me follow you around. I'll be happy to do it, Andy. Look, we got a lot to talk about here on Soccer in 60, and you and I are going to have a nice conversation about both the Galaxy and LAFC, but let's get right into it. With the boys from Carson down at Dignity Health Sports Park. The Galaxy, of course, had 2 matches since our last time on, and they flew across the country to take on Atlanta United. And after withstanding a solid effort from about 70 minutes from the home side, it was the Galaxy flipping the script. And the human backpack that is Gabriel Peck in that one, 2 goals, 74th minute, 79th minute, and it could have been worse. Let me ask you, how hard is it, first of all, to fly all the way across country and to win in, of all places, the Benz out there in Atlanta?
Sure, that's not an easy road trip for the Galaxy to make just to begin with. And then playing in a stadium like that where usually you see good energy, but because of Atlanta's recent form, it hasn't been great there in terms of the fan base and kind of empty. And you're playing in an imposing venue on a stadium like that where you're kind of just like, okay, let's see. But you got to give Galaxy credit for that result, right? Like they pulled it out, and it's not something that we had seen this season so far. So I think that all in all, you could decipher that game anyways, but a win there is a big deal for the Galaxy, which had them believing that this midweek match day would also be that, but kind of wasn't.
Yeah, and what you've seen from Galaxy many times this season is when they fall behind or when things don't go their way, they tend to just fold up, and that's it, especially on the road. But I want to ask you about the quality, the level of a player like Gabriel Peck, who, one of the most dynamic players, a guy you pay to watch, and the fact that he does not give up for any of those 90 minutes, scored in the 74th, scored again in the 79th, and it's just that constant pressure on that side. What does it mean that Greg Vanney has a player like Gabriel Peck at his disposal?
There are certain players that you could just tell that they're a little bit above other players in MLS and just their mentality, their quality. And Gabriel Peck is one of those players, and he's been that for the Galaxy. He had to fill a leadership role this season. He had to fill a quality role this season, and he's kind of doing that. I think the opposite end is he does show his frustration very easily and kind of checks out of games. But when you have a player of that caliber that could literally pull a moment out of anywhere and score a goal or give you a big play, it's a big, big deal. I think he's been as promised in MLS for the Galaxy, especially for a team that has a lot of swings and misses on some big DP names over the years. So Gabriel Peck, very, very great player, and Greg Vanney needs to be happy to have him because he's keeping it somewhat afloat over there right now.
And for the second season, right? Obviously, Ricky Puig not walking through that door anytime soon, and now Joao Klaus as well, missing a significant amount of time. Let me ask you real quick about JT Marcinkowski. He has been the keeper that Greg Vanney has been looking for now over the last several matches, kind of making that key save. And we talked about this with the Lacuna Galaxiana guys who normally are on with us, Ananda and Rob, and they say Greg Vanney just likes to find a way to rib Mitrovic by promoting Marcinkowski quite a bit, but he continues to make that one big save each and every match.
Yeah, you're spot on. I was actually on their podcast probably like a month ago or so, and I said no serious team in MLS has a goalkeeper controversy. Like Greg Vanney, just lean in and say this is your guy and keep it moving. And finally, he's done that. But yeah, I mean, the Galaxy over the years have just been juggling goalkeepers for some odd reason. And that's a tell sign of a team not being serious. And when you have a goalkeeper rotation, then your back line, which has typically been struggling over the seasons, is going to not be able to have that same comfortability because you don't know who's your goalkeeper. So I think he's been pretty good for the Galaxy. It's a shame that defensively the Galaxy continue to have crazy lapses. But yeah, he's definitely been what Greg Vanney wanted. He stepped up to the plate big time.
All right, so what Andy is hinting at for all of you Galaxy supporters out there listening is it was one step forward in Atlanta, all the way out to Atlanta, but unfortunately 2 big steps back as they took on what might be the worst team in Major League Soccer history over their last 20, 30 games in Sporting Kansas City, and absolutely punched in the mouth was Greg Vanney's side, down 2-0 at the half, 3-0 by the 70th minute. Of course, they pulled one back late, but what does a result like this mean for the Galaxy? Because as we've talked about pre-show, Andy, this club, Sporting Kansas City, is not good.
Yeah, very kind of you to the fans of Sporting Kansas City to say might before saying they're the worst team in MLS history. But the Galaxy, and I've said this from when the season started, it's a mentality problem for me. The quality's there. You have players that won MLS Cup under the same coach, under the same system that look like a shell of what they were that year that they won MLS Cup. Like Garces was one of the best defenders in the league when the Galaxy won MLS Cup a few years ago. And granted, things happen and players change a little bit and, levels drop off. But there's no reason to me why somebody like him, like Edwin Cedillo, like there's just players all across that board that just are not playing at a level that they need to be. And then it's a chain effect because defensively, if you're bad, then obviously moving forward, players like Peck and Paintsel, who's just coming back from injury, are not going to be able to have that big of an effect. They also have really bad luck. And I don't love saying that about teams, but man, the Galaxy over the years have had awful luck. Like João Klaus was leading the Golden Boot race in the beginning of the season. Then he just gets hurt and now he's out for a few months. Somebody like Christian Ramirez, who is a pretty established guy in MLS, cannot even get on the field with the Galaxy. When he did, he was awful. And now he's in Austin. The ball's falling to his feet and he's scoring goals with his eyes closed. So it's just, and this does kind of reflect on Greg Vanney after all. But like, it's just the Galaxy have a mentality problem. It's not a talent problem because a lot of teams in MLS would love to have the players they have, and they can't seem to pull themselves out of it. And they're slowly making their way up the standings. And like you said, it's in a step back, losing a Sporting Kansas City team who is god-awful right now.
You say god-awful. I'll give you this stat. Since September of 2025, the Sporting Kansas City has played 19 matches in Major League Soccer. They've lost 14, they've drawn 3, and they've won 2, both of those being against the Galaxy. And of course, who scores in both of those? Dejan Joveljic. That's what you get for winning MLS Cup, right? You start to lose some of these guys. But even Calvin Harris, the Reclamation Project, scoring for Sporting Kansas City today. And of course, in the 89th minute, who pulls one back? It's Gabriel Peck, because they can't keep Gabriel Peck down. Look, let's transition. Let's go 13 miles up the freeway to BMO Stadium as normally a welcome sight with the Houston Dynamo coming into town. Nice to welcome back Mateusz Bogusz. But it's safe to say that Toluca won that game 4-1 as well, because yikes, the hangover looks real, Andy. This performance against Houston, a 4-1 loss, a bunch of different adjectives that you can use to describe this club. But is this really a case of you put all your eggs in that CONCACAF Champions Cup basket, you travel up 8,750 feet to Toluca, and then you just have nothing left in the tank on the way back? Or is there something more to this?
I'm kind of in the middle there. And, you've been in the press conferences with Marc Dos Santos. I think after that Houston game was the first time I saw him kind of dejected and being like, yeah, we have issues right now. And we understand the rotation and we understand everybody being kind of tired because of what we've gone through. But that's not an excuse, right? And talk about talent on the roster with the Galaxy. Talent on the roster on LAFC is in abundance, and it's probably one of the better rosters in MLS. So I do understand the hardships going to Toluca and losing and bowing out of the tournament that way. But there are a lot of tangibles that you could point at for LAFC saying this might be more than just an issue of just a schedule congestion. And that's kind of a scary sign. But yeah, the Houston game, super lethargic, and it was almost to be expected. And also because Marc Dos Santos is not really rotated much. In certain games, maybe he should have. So you're starting to see that kind of wear the players down a little bit. So, yeah.
Let me ask you, one thing that we saw in that Houston game, especially early on, there was cross after cross after cross in the box. LAFC trying something that maybe they haven't done a whole ton of, but last time I checked, no more Olivier Giroud on the roster. Kai Kamara just retired. So there's not that go up and get it type of number 9 who you're going to play all those crosses into. Is that maybe the biggest exposed weakness? We know that LAFC has had trouble breaking down a low block time and time again. We actually just saw that again in St. Louis, which we'll talk about in a second. But not having that true number 9, right? That player up top that can just go get it, that's got to be addressed by John Thorrington and staff in that transfer window, right?
Scarf, I go back to remembering the days of Chicho Arango, and I said it then, and I'll continue to say I have no clue why a team like LAFC has never been able to just put a 9 in that roster, in that lineup, and let it click. And it's been over the years. I mean, you bring somebody like Olivier Giroud, who is France's all-time leading goal scorer, and he couldn't do a damn thing on the soccer field. He won U.S. Open Cup, so shout out to him. But it's just like, I don't understand. And I don't know if it's a system thing. I don't know if it's like John Thornton is telling like his coaches like, hey, you need to play this way and play this way. I understand you have somebody like Bouanga on the wing who's going to take up a lot of the attention on offense. But yeah, that number 9 position continues to be a question mark for LAFC. And if they don't find a way to figure that out, I don't know if they have longevity in playing in the same system before. Things kind of just fall apart.
Yeah, maybe they're looking at that West Ham or Tottenham rosters over there and hoping that there's somebody that wants to come over, whoever gets relegated in that one. I mean, look, if El Paso Locomotive could bring on Danny Rojas, who knows? Maybe Zava is available somewhere in the Ted Lasso universe. We'll see. Obviously, the biggest thing from that Houston loss is the injury and now subsequent timeline on that injury, which seems to be quite a bit for Sergi Palencia. We all who watch LAFC know what Sergi Palencia means, not just literally defensively, but as kind of like a heart and soul guy on that pitch for LAFC. They said he'll be out at least through the World Cup break, but I mean, that's kind of what we knew already just by looking at it. So what does it mean to not have a player the caliber of Sergi Palencia on the pitch?
That's a big loss. And you said it perfectly. I think the Toluca game, maybe I was sitting next to Josh in the press box, and I turned and said, this guy Sergi has one of these moments every game where he gets in somebody's face and yells at them. And I hate it as a neutral, because I'm like, this is like taking away from the game, but I love it as like, if you were on his team and to somebody you root for, that's what you want to see. Aside from him being a great defender, it's kind of that energy he brings to the games and kind of that nastiness almost, where you need that in big moments and against certain teams. So it's a very big loss. LAFC does have to find a way to kind of tinker with the lineup a little bit to make do with him not being there. But it's I mean, if you don't want to see anybody go out, but that is a key piece to that LAFC defense.
Yeah, and if we're talking about who's the next man up, it looked like Ryan Raposo was the one tapped against St. Louis. We'll get to that in just a minute. But in between those two matches, by the way, LAFC 2 played a match where they won, and Jude Terry scored another worldie in that one, this one from even farther out. Let me ask you, with all the midfield kind of questions that have been happening for LAFC over the last several matches, is it maybe time to get the 17-year-old on the pitch a little bit more?
I would try it, man. I don't understand for the life of me why MLS coaches are so stubborn sometimes, knowing that 9 teams in each conference get into the playoffs. Like, you could try things in the middle of the season. These points, you're losing games anyway. These points are not going to kill you in the long run. Like, don't burn your players out and put the same 11 out there and then complain about schedule congestion. Like, I would 100% try it, and I think Jude Terry is kind of justifying it with his actions on the field.
I mean, look, we've seen it all over MLS, right? Between Goso and between all the guys at the Red Bulls and everything. Why not? Let the young kids play, right? So we go to St. Louis to the Mamadou Fall reunion party that is St. Louis City. And this is a club that not only has LAFC never lost to in the past, but they've never even allowed a goal in St. Louis in their history against St. Louis. And yet, 4 minutes into the match, the Edward Leuven story continues to write itself. I mean, what an incredible, awful journey that he's had this season in Major League Soccer. So kudos to him, scoring in like a minute when he first came back, and now getting his first start, getting the ovation from the crowd. Something told me while I was watching that match, the first corner kick that St. Louis got, he was the one taking the corner and getting love. And I was like, oh, uh-oh. All right, the soccer gods have seen this. There's going to be something going on for sure. And there you go. 4 minutes in, LAFC falls behind. And it took 70 minutes and substitutions once again for LAFC to figure something out with David Martinez, who has been that breath of fresh air, has been that third striker that LAFC has been looking for quite some time. But a 2-1 loss now to a bad St. Louis team leading into this. And just want to get your thoughts on their performance overall against St. Louis.
Yeah, it's another one where you think maybe they lose to Houston. Okay, we kind of chalk that up to just being right on the tail of that Toluca trip. Then you go to St. Louis, a trip that's, I'd say, far enough. It's not cross country, but it's far enough. And a St. Louis team that hadn't really been putting the results together, but people love to say playing really well. And those 2 goals that they scored against LAFC were really well organized goals and team goals. I think if, there's so much that you could say about LAFC, and a lot of people want to focus on Sonny not, scoring yet and things of that nature. LAFC has allowed 10 goals in 3 games. And if we're talking about something and we're talking about how bad the Galaxy defensively have been over the years, this LAFC team has always had a strong defensive foundation. And right now it's kind of crumbling. And to the point I made earlier, if that's crumbling, then moving forward, it's not going to be cohesive for anybody. So it's kind of tough. LAFC is just limping to the finish line. But hey, guess what? Nashville and Seattle are up next before the World Cup break, so it gets no easier for them.
Yeah, Galaxy have to go through Seattle for their next one. Unfortunately, like you mentioned, Nashville coming up for LAFC, but maybe that's a club that's just as hungover as LAFC is, right? Losing to Tigres in the way that they did in the same spot in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Let me ask you, now that they are traveling to Nashville, quick answer here. What do we expect from a Nashville side that likes to defend, an LAFC side that holds their hat on defense? But what are we expecting from this match?
Who knows? Is it going to be a car crash? I would love it to be just let the guards loose and just go at it. But I feel like it's a Bouanga game, man. Like Bouanga has had some rest because of these yellow card accumulations. Like let him go, man, and free him and see what happens, because LAFC stacking up losses going into the World Cup break will not be ideal for them.
All right. I want to remind everybody, this is Andy Deossa. It's the Kickin' the Reel podcast. That's where you got to find Andy. He also writes for Apple Sports. And now, whether he likes it or not, he's a member of the Soccer in 60 family. Andy, thank you so much for coming on and joining me this week. We hope to have you on again soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure, and anytime you need.
All right, so there you heard Andy talking a little bit about the Galaxy's past results and certainly LAFC's past results as well. And Kara, you talked about a team just not showing up. Ananda, you talked about a team was told they didn't even leave the hotel. LAFC looked like they left everything back in Toluca, 8,750 feet up. We know we talked about the 4-0 loss. I just didn't think Toluca would score 4 more goals the way they did against LAFC with Houston jerseys on. Let me ask you both. Kara, first, is this just the hangover from putting all your eggs in the CONCACAF Champions Cup basket and losing as poorly and in as spectacular a fashion as they did? Or is this 4-1 loss to Houston indicative of something else?
If it hadn't been a 4-1 loss, I think I would have blamed it on the hangover. I think we knew that it was going to be a slog for LAFC. And of course, understandably, that is devastating, especially, a week ago, LAFC was challenging for a spot in the final of CONCACAF Champions Cup. That's huge. And the adrenaline rush of that and the disappointment of that's going to last a while. And so I expected them to carry that into this game, but I certainly did not expect them to allow 4 goals, especially with the lack of goals that they've allowed. So, leading up to this season, I mean, before Toluca, they certainly weren't leaking goals like they seem to be now. They were so strong. They had not conceded a goal for how many games? It was unbelievable, the streak that they were on. So that page is really turned in an unfortunate way. And so, yeah, I did not expect it to be quite as bad as it was against Houston, because that was painful, to be honest.
Yeah, and the tough part is once they opened up, they knew that they had to get one. How clinical that Toluca was getting those 2 back-to-back off of Paulinho. I mean, it was just incredible to watch how quickly they slammed the door on LAFC. Ananda, one of the players that I know you and I have talked about that's really kind of fun to watch, especially if he's on your side. If he's not, he's a thorn in your side for sure, is Sergi Palencia. And I think the biggest blow after this Houston loss, it wasn't even the 4 goals and the 3 points taken from them at home, but it was the loss of Sergi Palencia through at least the World Cup break. You've gotten a chance to see a ton of him play, Ananda. What does that mean that LAFC is going to be without Sergi for the foreseeable future?
That means the LFC is going to be without one of their mainstays in the back four, and Scarf with a back four that's looking leakier and leakier every week. That's a huge loss, right? Sergio Palencia is a guy that knows the system, knows this team, knows his teammates inside and out. He's really good going up and down. He's a very modern fullback, if you think about it in that way, and he's critical to chance creation and all the things that LAFC likes to do on that side. And then he's a dog, right? He's really, really feisty on the defensive end. And they're going to miss a lot of that. And, Ryan Raposo has got some big shoes to fill now. And jury's still out on him, right? According to LAFC fans, especially. I mean, he hasn't gotten really much of a look in ever since he's joined the team. So, big miss for sure for LAFC.
And he was certainly next man up, as we'll talk about, against St. Louis. But Timmy, let me ask you, in between the two losses for LAFC 2 played a match, and 17-year-old Jude Terry scored another worldie of a goal. This one coming obviously for the baby black and gold for LAFC 2. But is it time for the 17-year-old midfielder to get some more minutes so that Marc Dos Santos can maybe get his guys some rest and put the young kid out there, let him do some things?
I think yes. Ananda just touched on it. You got to get some of these kids minutes. We talk about it with Orange County. You got to get the 16, 17-year-olds minutes. Yeah, I think it's time to bring them up to the big boy club and put them in, at least, give them some late game minutes, or bring them on at the 60-minute mark, or maybe even at halftime, get them in some really good minutes and see what the kid can do, and if he's going to do anything as with the big club that he's been doing with the smaller club, I think LAFC has got a star in the making in their hands.
Yeah, they traveled to a place that they had never even conceded a goal before, let alone lose a match, as LAFC travels to St. Louis to take on St. Louis City, and the feel-good story that is Edward Leuven's return from what must have just been awful, awful circumstances. He gets an early assist in this one in his first home start back. And all of a sudden, LAFC now in a bit of a spiral, losing this one 2-1. Luckily, for the second straight match, the subs come in late, provide a little bit of a spark. And Cara, it comes off the foot of David Martinez again after a beautiful ball over the top. Again, David Martinez, we've talked about it now time and time again. He's that third striker that LAFC can count on. But now it looks like Marc Dos Santos using him as like a super sub off the bench. I want to get your thoughts on the way that he's been used over the last several matches.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions about him not starting against Toluca. I had a lot of questions about him not starting tonight. I think the only reasonable explanation would be if you are resting him for Nashville. I know that rotation is still an issue with the congested schedule that LAFC has had. So if Marc Dos Santos has rotation on his mind, then fine, you get a pass for not starting David Martinez. But if that is a tactical decision, then he needs to be questioned for it, because David Martinez is your sole playmaker at the moment. He is the only threat going forward. Why is he sitting on the bench? He needs a free role. Let him roam. He's the one who's going to make the difference. And he proved it today, scoring with virtually his first touch of the match. So for me going forward, he needs to be starting.
Well, don't worry. If you want anybody to question Marc Dos Santos, just head on over to LAFC Twitter. It's happening quite a bit right now, especially amidst this tailspin. Real quick, Ananda, we've got Nashville against LAFC in this next match coming up. Both teams who lost in that semifinal, the CONCACAF Champions Cup. What are you expecting from that match?
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting, especially given where LAFC is right now. So, I mean, if you're in the LAFC camp, as a lot of our listeners are, I mean, you've got to expect a response, right? And that's going to show you, that's going to go a long way to, again, the MDS talk or not. Like, there's so much out there, Scarf. And I even listened to your guys' podcast the other day, and just, I think that's where the attention is right now. So it's, fight or flight. Let's see the response. And that's going to be the interesting thing coming into this, especially as an LAFC fan.
Absolutely. If you want to listen to his podcast, head on over to Lacuna Galaxiana. That's Ananda Karana. Ananda, thanks so much for coming on. We're going to check in with our good friends over at National Core. National Core is one of the nation's largest nonprofit affordable housing developers and a proud sponsor of your MASL team, the Empire Strykers. At National Core, they believe that soccer has the power to transform lives just like they do. They believe in building strong communities on and off the field. And to learn more about National Core and their mission, head on over to nationalcore.org. All right, Timmy K, between you and Gunner, and of course Philly, who's our friend of the show here on quite a bit as well. We watch a lot of MASL soccer, a lot of the indoor game. We've never seen an expansion draft before, my friend. And the expansion draft, Timmy, is coming up. The protected player lists were revealed, just to give everybody an idea of what's going on May 26th, I believe. The expansion draft will happen. It's the Lehigh Valley club that is joining MASL next week. Each club able to protect 10 field players and 1 keeper. Timmy, I want to ask you first about some real surprises on the unprotected lists, not necessarily for the Empire Strikers yet. We'll get into them in a second. But we're talking about Golden Boot contender Zach Reggett. We're talking about Defender of the Year Chad Vandergriff. Do Everything captain and Nick Pereira. Goalkeeper Willie B. I mean, one of the biggest, most famous goalkeepers in league history. Tons of guys. What were your thoughts as you were looking over those unprotected lists?
Well, I thought it was very interesting as to who was left unprotected, like you mentioned. But I'm not surprised that there are some big names on this list, like you mentioned it, Nick Pereira, or legends in the goalkeeping area. I think it's just a matter of fact that you've got to have some of these stars go to these other teams. There's going to be excitement with the brand new team, right? But if you can put some stars in there, now they're also going to draw on the road, right? And that's the biggest thing, is putting cheeks in seats, as Philly likes to say it. But the reality is, when you have the league expanding like it's going to, and you're going to have a couple of more teams coming in over the next couple of years, is what I've been hearing in the rumor mill, is you want to have 6, 8, 10,000 people in the arena every night. And the only way you're going to do that is if you get some pretty big stars that have come from other teams to come and really make an impact with the new expansion club.
And it's going to be fun to watch, right? Lehigh Valley coming, Harrisburg potentially on its way back as well. So you got a built-in rival right there too. And imagine having a Zach Reggett and a Chad Vandergriff come out there for Lehigh Valley in their first season. It's going to be interesting. Let's transition over to the protected list, or should we say the unprotected list for the Empire Strykers. There were 4 names that I'm just going to throw out there, Timmy, and we'll talk about all 4 of these in a minute. First and foremost, the player who, and I'm going to ask you who you think might be the most likely to go off of that list, but the player who I think would be a huge get for Lehigh Valley is Alan Perez, who has played 103 total matches for the Strikers since 2021, back in the days where they were the Ontario Fury. A career-high 13 goals last season for the Strikers, 34 goals, 29 assists total in his career. At keeper, Brandon Gomez unprotected. In his 13 matches, he allowed just 4.71 goals per match, which would have been some of the lowest numbers in the league had he qualified. Marco Fabian, and the big salary, by the way, that Marco commands, because Lehigh Valley has to make some decisions on salary if you want to take a guy like Marco Fabian. Look, we know it was a down year, just 10 goals, 5 assists, I think, on the year for Marco in 15 matches played, but that's still an Olympic gold medalist you're talking about in Marco Fabian, talking about cheeks and seats. And man, Timmy, wouldn't it be interesting, just for fun, if Lehigh Valley decided to draft Robert Palmer off of the expansion list?
I think it'd be awesome. I think it'd be hilarious.
Aside from the chaos that would cause, Timmy, who do you expect to be drafted by Lehigh Valley off of the Empire Strikers list? I'll explain about Berto in a second, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's Alan Perez. Cheeks and seats, and really what it is, it's, hands in the air after they score. And that's really what it is, because you can keep the ball out, but MASL is all about putting up 7, 8, 10 goals a game. And if you get a guy like Perez, he's easily going to double, maybe not double, but he's definitely going to improve upon what he did for the Strikers this past season.
Yeah, especially if he gets all that playing time. I mean, the kid has earned it in his career for the Empire Strikers franchise there between the Fury and the Strikers. By the way, Berto Palmer, he is not just one of the best defenders in MASL year after year. He's also tapped to be the player coach for the Empire Strikers next year. So maybe the fact that they left him out there, they were like, there's no way Lehigh Valley would take our coach. Does that mean Lehigh Valley doesn't have to hire a coach? Either way, it would be really, I know, Jeff, if you're listening, I don't want it to happen. We're just laughing at the possibility that it would be kind of funny. Look, Berto, by the way, again, and we want to mention, we talked about Berto Palmer and his role last episode, but we do want to stress Berto is coming back as a player coach, as we have found out. A little bit of a mea culpa on our end on that one. Anytime I can bring Latin into the show, I might as well. We were wondering aloud if Berto was hanging up the cleats or not, but luckily for us, Timmy K, he'll be a player coach one more season. All right, let's head on down to Angel City as we head all around the Southland. Angel City. Oh, look, Kara's back. That's so cool. We say Angel City, Kara appears. This is the best show. Look, they dropped their 4th consecutive match last Saturday, and this one stung a little bit more if you're an ACFC supporter, not just because that was Didi Haricic in goal for San Diego, keeping that ball out of the back of the net in that 2-1 defeat. But on the sidelines, that was kind of an interesting wrinkle thrown into the mix. Head coach Jonas Eideval serving a one match suspension for a red card. So, of course, Kara, who does that mean emerges from the shadows? Assistant coach Becky Tweed. Yes, the same coach who led ACFC from June of 2023 through the end of the 2024 season. Let me ask you, was that kind of like looking in one of those bizarro funhouse mirrors this last weekend for Angel City?
It was odd for sure. And I'm sure Becky Tweed felt like she had something to prove, and she did well. I think she's walking away from that match very proud of herself, as she should. I mean, they did well. San Diego looked good. It's a tough day for Angel City, but good day for Becky Tweed, that's for sure.
Yeah, and another late goal, this time in the 81st minute, leaving points on the pitch for Angel City. We talked about that there would be no Mayara News in this one because of the red card suspension, but unfortunately for Mayara, it's now been upgraded to a 2-match suspension, so she'll be sitting out the next one as well against, oh, by the way, the first place Portland Thorns. But let me ask you, Kara, Claire Emsley, back on the pitch just for a couple of minutes, but back on the pitch making her return after giving birth to her beautiful baby boy, Jamie, in December of 2025. The lift that has to give, not just the locker room, obviously, but she's as good as there is a striker, I think, in the league. So what does it mean to now be able to pair somebody like Claire Emsley with Svendis Jonsdottir?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think Svendis Jonsdottir is maybe in need of somebody, a little bit support up there, because you can tell that she's doing her darndest, but it's a lot of weight to carry up front for Svendis. So I think having Claire Emsley as an option, I don't expect to see her playing 90 minutes anytime soon, but it's definitely a huge positive for this team. I think a big morale boost as well, just to have somebody of her leadership as well. On the sidelines, playing more of a prominent role, even if she's not playing a ton of minutes. I think it's huge for this team and exactly what they need at this point in the season, especially after 4 losses in a row.
Yeah, and Timmy, maybe some more help coming up top with June Endo getting her first start as she works her way back from injury, played the first 45 minutes. We're talking about Claire Emsley. We're talking about June Endo. We're talking about pairing all of that with a Svendis Jonsdottir or a Kennedy Fuller or some of these other attacking options that they have. So the cupboard getting a little fuller here for Alex Strauss, Timmy. June Endo, what does she mean now that she's back almost at full health now for Angel City?
I just think Kara mentioned it with Claire, but I think June brings a lot of that leadership too. But I think one of the other things that she does is she brings another option, another ability, another person to be in that attack. And Kara mentioned it. She needs somebody. Svendis needs somebody to take the weight off of her shoulders. We had been, talking about it, and we've joked on the show that, Svendis was going to lead the league in goals, and I'll just kind of nudge Kara every now and then on that one. But I think the reality with June coming in and being able to be part of that attack as well as track people down on defense and keep the ball out of the net as well as put it in the net. I think that's huge. And when you come off of 4 straight losses, I think the ability to have somebody else that is able to create a bunch more offense and do that finishing that Angel City has been lacking the last few games, I think that's going to be huge for the team.
Real quick to add to that, Sydney Leroux also was just, it was just announced that she's joined the team in training as well. So she is now full on training with the team. So we could see her return to play on the horizon.
Yeah, you talk about in the stands, you see a lot of jerseys on the back that say LaRue or Endo, two of the biggest fan favorites at BMO Stadium as well. I want to ask you, Cara, what seemed to be a good match for Angelina Anderson in goal. You know, we were kind of unsure which way Alex Strauss would go. He's kept the course and stayed with Angelina Anderson. She does make a great save, especially on Melanie Barcenas, who I think is still a teenager. She's been in the league like 12 years now, but is still somehow playing still as a teenager. But what were your thoughts on Angelina Anderson in this one?
I think she did well. I don't think that this loss is on her at all. I think the giving up the late goal is, you know, this is something that Angel City was plagued by last season and seasons in the past, and it seems to continue this season as well. I think for Angelina, it was a strong performance overall, and I think that she stood her ground. You know, we talked about Hannah Siebert, maybe if we were going to see her get some action anytime soon. And I feel like if Alex Strauss hasn't made that switch yet, it's pretty clear that Angelina Anderson is his number one and that he's going to stick by her. And I don't think she gave him any reason in this match to question that at all.
Yeah, if you look at those 2 goals, the first of which I haven't seen Giselle Thompson get undressed like that almost ever on the back line. Dudinia with just a worldie of a goal. Beautiful job there. And then, of course, that second one, a beautiful ball over the top. I mean, not a lot you can do. I do want to ask you, Cara, real quick, too, about Emily Sams getting her first goal for Angel City and what that means. Obviously, she's taken huge steps forward on the national team circuit, and now she's really starting to assert herself, what we thought we would see from her in these matches moving forward.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all to see Emily Sams getting on the end of anything inside the box. I think this is a major part of her profile as a player and something that we knew she was going to bring to the table for Angel City. We saw a few weeks ago her with a beautiful service into the box, her getting down the line and playing it across the box. And now she's getting on the end of a goal. And I'm glad to see it happening. I think we're going to see a lot more of it from her, but definitely it's great for her. It bodes really well for her with the national team as well, because as the center back contributing at the other end of the pitch the way she is, that just makes her that much more valuable for the country as well as their club. So that's great to see from her. That was actually probably my most positive takeaway from this match. Also, just the fact that they didn't stop fighting. You know, they coming back from being down 1-0. I mean, they gave up the game late, but for a while there, it was very even and they were in the midst of making a comeback. And I think a lot of that is because of Emily Sams and the fight that she shows and the leadership that she's got. But yeah, just overall great addition to this team.
They're going to need all of it as they travel to one of the toughest places to play in the NWSL. First place, Portland, Providence Park. Let's see, 4 players with 3 or more goals: Ryland Turner, Olivia Moultrie, Sophia Wilson, and Pietra Torden. That is not a fun task to try and keep Portland out of the back of the net. First of all, Cara, what does Angel City do to slow that train down?
Yeah, well, you mentioned it. 4 players who are absolutely deadly. Their attack's been so dangerous because it doesn't rely on just one player carrying the load. So they can hurt you from multiple lines and in multiple phases of play. So the key for Angel City is staying compact defensively, obviously, and controlling the spaces in between the lines. Portland can hurt you from everywhere. AFC just can't focus on one player. They've got to protect the middle of the field, slow Portland's transition, and just really not let them combine centrally in and around the box, because that's really where they're most dangerous.
Yeah, and then they get to host Kansas City Current at home. They might be separated by 6 places in the standings, but just 3 points in the table. So these two going to be pretty big coming up. Again, a big thank you to Cara I think we're going to see Kara back again for best 11. But so she's already shaking her head. She's ready. All right, this will be fun. But Timmy, let's talk about the County Boys. Last Friday, County Boys traveled to Colorado Springs to take on the Switchbacks, and that's exactly what this game did. Switched back and forth. It lived up to the club's namesake. But I think this one, what stood out most for me, Timmy, is it was an absolute masterclass by Chris Hagart. A fantastic match, getting both a goal and an assist. And it's just more of what we've come to expect from Hagart over the years with Orange County.
Yeah, he is the stalwart of that team, and for him to get a goal and assist, like you mentioned, is just key to this team's continued success. And to do it in a place like Colorado, where you're going up, we talked about elevation at Toluca, you're pretty far up there as well. You're in the Mile High City. And so for the County Boys to go out and get a draw, although we'll talk about how it ended up that way in the 6th minute of extra time. But for Hagart to come in and the way he's led with Tyson Espy a couple of weeks ago, the way he's led with Nico Benalcazar and Silla and all the boys, you mentioned it, masterclass. He was just brilliant in this game, and there was no stopping him until 6 minutes of extra time.
Yeah, and unfortunately, some of his teammates, we don't see this very often, losing their head in the way that they did. I have to ask you about the silly penalty. Tom Brewitt in the box. I don't know how he argued that one, and unfortunately, Orange County loses the momentum. I want to ask you, what were your thoughts on that penalty given up by Tom?
Yeah, this is just, I think he's thinking that he has to do more than he needs to. I think he doesn't have to do what he did. He doesn't have to take the guy down. He doesn't have to do something silly. He can just take one extra step and get a little better position, or he can, trust his teammates a little bit more. And, and Rando's been playing all world. So even if he does get off a shot, 9 times out of 10, Rando's going to stop that ball. So it was a little bit of a silly one. You could sort of see it. But again, at the end of the day, eat a little bit of crow pie on that one and just be done with it and not argue and potentially get a card or get the referee angry at your team for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, and to your point, second fewest goals allowed in the Western Conference in their USL Championship matches. Orange County's been very, very good. We saw Ousmane Silla get a little lucky, right? It was an awkward first touch for him in terms of getting that ball past the keeper. But again, it was that beautiful through ball from Chris Hagart. But we're seeing Silla now become more and more involved. But I think the big key, right, Timmy K, is that it's more and more consistently involved in the offense rather than just showing up once or twice in a match.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. We've talked heavily about Hagart, but you look at Silla, and he started to show spurts of this last season, right, where he would dominate a game and then he'd disappear for a game or two, or show up as it were for 10-15 minutes. These past couple of games, and especially this one against Colorado, between him and Hagart, they were the men of that match, in my opinion. And to see him on a consistent basis and then to almost pull one back in the 7th minute of added time at the end of the second half. I mean, you talk about guys that aren't giving up like we did with a couple of the teams earlier in the show. It's this type of thing where Orange County is really, really gelling. And at the end of the day, they still only have one loss in their last 5 matches. So it's not like they're playing terrible. They're 2 wins, 2 draws, and only the 1 L.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is a club that, look, they're still trending in the right direction. 1 point behind San Antonio for second place in the Western Conference after 10 matches. Real quick, the heartbreaker, 6th minute of stoppage time, Tyreek McGee, an absolutely solid goal, but just an unfortunate way to leave points on the pitch.
Yeah. That was a banger. I mean, you get that, and it's like, geez, okay. You almost like, all right, we'll go ahead and take the draw on that one. But it was heartbreaking to see it. And Colorado, you got to give them credit too. They never start fighting the entire game. So for the County Boys to play that well, and this one is a draw that doesn't feel like a loss, but it definitely could have been a win for the County boys.
No, you're absolutely right. Again, they'll take on Phoenix Rising in Phoenix for a USL Cup group stage match on May 16th. But now it's time for our favorite segment here on Soccer in 60, one that Cara was raring to go right before we quietly, we do a little magic of editing here. It was just Timmy and I for Orange County, but now we're back for Best 11. JT Marcinkowski between the pipes for his effort for the Galaxy at Atlanta. The defenders, Emiro Garces and Mauricio Cuevas for the Galaxy at Atlanta. Sarah Gordon for Angel City versus San Diego. And Garrison Tubbs back on the Best 11 for Orange County against Colorado Springs, dominating the midfield with Chris Hagart and Ousmane Silla. Marco Royce, our third midfielder on this one for his efforts at Atlanta. And for the forwards, Captain Gabriel Peck with 3 goals on the week for his efforts against Atlanta and Kansas City. David Martinez for his efforts against St. Louis and Houston. And Svendis Jonsdottir for Angel City against San Diego. If you're keeping score, that's 1 for LAFC, 2 for Angel City, 3 for Orange County, and 5 for the Galaxy. All right, Cara, who stands out most for you on this list and why this week?
I think Gabriel Peck's the obvious choice because he scored so many goals. But for me, Marco Royce had to make it this week because the way he changed that game for the Galaxy when he came in against Atlanta, he just completely turned it on its head. He was the difference maker, as well as Eric Tommy, who I see is not on the list. But Marco Royce for me is the one that stands out the most and had to be there. I would have been mad had he not been.
I love it. And by the way, direct all your complaints. Our producer's name is Gunnar Burnt, everybody. Timmy, lots of representation from the County boys in this one. We talked about Silla. We talked about Hagart. But we didn't talk enough, apparently, about Garrison Tubbs. I want to get your thoughts on the way Tubbs has played over the last several weeks.
Yeah, he's been the new addition to the team, and he's come in, fit right in like a glove, and it's been great because, I kind of joked about it. It's a new sheriff in town with the name like Garrison Tubbs. He's ready to take care of it. He has just fit into the Orange County system like no other. And it's been really, really fun to watch. I like the guy, he's a good kid and he's going to come in and he's got a lot of pro experience. So a guy like this coming in middle of the season, and these are the types of things where you're going to get a draw in Colorado instead of a 3-1 loss.
Yeah. And Cara, look, we know that Denis Bouanga and Heung-min Son are on that front line for LAFC each and every week. And yet, as we look at the Best 11, it's David Martinez representing over the course of 2 matches. We talk about him and how high that ceiling is starting to seem. Cara, now we're getting in those dog days, and David Martinez continues to be the one that keeps showing up.
Yeah, if it weren't for the fact that LAFC was knocked out of CONCACAF Champions Cup, had they made it to the final, my biggest concern with that was that David Martinez would get scooped up. Because a strong performance by him in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final, and he's a goner, which is great for him, not so great for LAFC. So I think with that result, not making it to the final, I think we can see him stick around for a little bit longer, but I'm expecting big things from him. I think right now, I said it before, he is really the only one you can count on to create anything going forward at the moment for LAFC.
And it's going to be interesting. Look, the World Cup will be happening, but what also will happen is that transfer window opens up 2 days before all the clubs come back from the World Cup break. Maybe David Martinez is a goner. Either way, we'll see what happens. Well, you got to see what happened on another fantastic episode here of Soccer in 60, brought to you by SAC Health System. A huge thank you to Ananda and obviously to Cara and Timmy and our interview guest, Andy Deossa, our producer Gunnar, and obviously Christian on the 1s and 2s. Please don't forget, subscribe on all of your podcasting platforms. This has been Soccer in 60, brought to you by SAC Health System. We'll see you